सबका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है इस मीटिंग में और थैंक यू सो मच फॉर ज्वाइनिंग दिस मीटिंग ऑफ द सिटी कोर ग्रुप। खास करके आज हमारा जो की मुद्दे के ऊपर बात करने वाले हैं वो डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस एक्ट के ऊपर है और हमारे बीच में एडवोकेट आइलिन मार्क्यूस है जो हमें मार्गदर्शन करेगी। मोर ऑफ Advocate Eileen Marcus, Donita will share with you before she takes the mic in terms of presentation of the subject on hand. We have a few people who are not part of the CCG network, or we would like to share with you what is City Core Group. It's a collection of 40 plus networks, basically across Mumbai, that work towards improving police responsiveness to women complainants, as also awareness on campaign for better policing. ये खास करके ये थीम है for the City Core Group और हम आप सबको भी वेलकम करते हैं जो सिटी कोर ग्रुप नेटवर्क के पार्टनर्स नहीं है। और ये बोलना चाहता हूं कि खास करके कोविड के टाइम हमारे पूरे नेटवर्क पार्टनर्स काफ़ी आउटरीच किए थे इन टर्म्स ऑफ राशंस और फूड पैकेट्स इन डिफरेंट पार्ट्स ऑफ मुंबई। दूसरी बात है कि हमारे बीच में मिस लक्ष्मी मेनन जो हमारी फाउंडिंग मेंबर थी सिटी कोर ग्रुप की, उनका देहांत हुआ अगस्त में। और लक्ष्मी मेनन हमारे सिटी कोर ग्रुप के इनिशिएशन में उन्होंने काफी योगदान किया था और उनकी एक स्पेशलिटी थी कि शी वाज पार्ट ऑफ द डॉक्यूमेंटेशन मूवमेंट, खास करके बिल्ड एनजीओ का, उसके बाद अक्षरा सेंटर का, और इंटरनेशनली भी वो स्पेशलिस्ट थी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन पे। हमारे बीच में उनकी सिस्टर भी है एडवोकेट जया मेनन जो विमेंस नेटवर्किंग के साथ जुड़ी हुई है, ऑलमोस्ट 25 विमेंस नेटवर्क्स इन डिफरेंट पार्ट्स ऑफ मुंबई। और एडवोकेट जया मेनन और मिस लक्ष्मी मेनन शुरुआत से करीब 3 साल से उनका, जब हम सोच रहे थे सिटी कोर ग्रुप की स्थापना करने में, उनका काफी योगदान रहा। तो आज उचित होगा कि हम लक्ष्मी मेनन के मेमोरी में 1 मिनट का कंडोलेंस साइलेंस हम ऑब्जर्व करेंगे। थैंक यू एडवोकेट जया मेनन। अनफॉर्चुनेटली उनके माइक और उनका वीडियो नहीं चल रहा है, लेकिन वी वुड लाइक टू थैंक यू very very sincerely for your support and also the involvement of Lakshmi, whom we are missing very much today. Thank you so much. हमारे बीच में हमारे कॉमनवेल्थ ह्यूमन राइट्स इनिशिएटिव के इंटरनेशनल डायरेक्टर और डायरेक्टर इंडिया है मिस्टर संजय हजारिका। नोटेड ऑथर है किताबों के, नोटेड ह्यूमन राइट्स कैंपेनर है, और उन्होंने एक नॉर्थ ईस्टर्न में जो बोट क्लिनिक्स है, हेल्थ क्लिनिक्स, करीब 15-16 साल से वो योगदान है। दिस इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट रिमार्केबल वर्क्स on the boat clinics, medical clinics, that Mr. Hajarika founded that, and it is doing tremendous work. Or I would request Mr. Sanjay Hajarika to speak to us. We're very happy that you are here with us in this meeting. You've always been there otherwise also. supporting us and guiding us. So we would like you to speak to us.
Thank you, Dolphy. And actually, for Advocate Jaya Menon, I was suggesting that she use a computer video uh, if her speaker mic isn't working. If she uses the computer audio, she may be actually be able to speak. So I don't know if she is able to do that. Um, do you know?
I think she had earlier only informed Sanjayda that she won't be able to access the mic and audio at settings today for the meeting.
Okay.
So I think.
Okay. Well, our condolences and sympathies to her on the loss of her sister, who was really one of the starting points, one of the starting persons of the CCG, and you know, I think all of us appreciate that, and the fact that she helped launch this whole process, which has picked up speed and strength over the years. I'm representing CHRI, the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, which some of you may know about. Dolphy and Donita work with us as our Bombay team, and we work on essentially. मुझे माफ़ कीजिएगा, मेरा हिंदी इतनी सही नहीं है, तो मैं ज़्यादा अंग्रेज़ी में बोलूँगा. I'm also a kid from Shillong in the northeast, so my Hindi was my third language, which is like nothing. So I speak a rather bazaar kind of Hindi of the northeast mixed with Mumbai Hindi and a little bit of Delhi Hindi. So I won't inflict that on you. And CHRI works on issues relating to access to justice and access to information. But we also have got two new areas, not so new, but they are substantial. One is freedom of media and expression and opinion, advocating, pressing, and working for a better media, freer media. And we have what's called the South Asia Media Defenders Network. This is a group of media journalists like Rajdeep Sardesai and other 60 others who are with me in setting up this network that mobilizes around pressures on journalists. So whenever we get information, whether the journalist is a big one or a big name or a small name, we advocate, mobilize, write to government, push with lawmakers, whatever it is required uh, on that. And we have started from our London office, because we have three offices. Delhi is the head office. Then we have an office in Accra in Ghana and one in London. The London office is now leading on what's called Target 8.7 out of the SDGs, which is on contemporary forms of slavery and trafficking. And just 2 or 3 weeks ago, they brought out a big report along with Walk Free Foundation, which is Walk Free and Minderoo Foundation, on essentially holding governments in the Commonwealth to account on how badly they're doing or how well they're doing. They're not doing well at all on trafficking issues. And that's on our website, so if you're interested, you can always look at it. That having been said, and I'm not going to really stand between you and your main resource person today, but I wanted to talk a little bit, share with you some thoughts on the issues of domestic violence and the problems that have been exacerbated really by COVID-19. Because we all know that DVW, domestic violence against women, or violence against intimate partners, has been really a problem across the world. But it's been increasingly felt in India. And many of you, or some of you, are involved in efforts to rescue, rehabilitate, support, survivors, victims of this horrible practice. Because it is a practice. It's sort of built into the genes of men. And sometimes in-laws who can be women. But what the pandemic did in the first 4 phases of the lockdown was, as we all know, lock up victims with abusers or potential abusers. And it's not just women, it's also children. So home, instead of being a sanctuary, became for many people the most dangerous place they could be in. And there was no access to either the police, because the police were busy in beating up people or blocking people or keeping the roads empty or whatever they were doing. In those first few weeks, they were completely untrained for this job. And they had other things to do. And those who were the rescue missionaries, in a way, the people who would be on a normal basis the point of contact for victims and so on, could not reach out to the victims because they were not allowed onto the streets. So you had this pandemic, this hidden pandemic of violence against women in their homes and against children. And I think that I'll just give you my research assistant, the assistant in my office assistant, Purnima Gusai, who was on this call. She helped me with a few statistics today, and I was just wanted to share them because some of you will be familiar with it, but I was really challenged by the fact that in the first 4 phases of the lockdown, Indian women filed more domestic violence complaints than recorded in a similar period in the past 10 years. And between March 25th, early morning, 1 minute past midnight, to the 31st of May, nearly 1,500 complaints of domestic violence were made by women, and the highest number was received, no surprise, from UP, which is exactly not known for gender equality. And the severity of these assaults has grown. Now, there have been some innovative ways of trying to deal with this. For instance, the DSLA, the Delhi State Legal Services Authority, DLSA, has authorized milk outlets, government milk outlets, dairy outlets, which are open every day to take complaints, to receive complaints. Chemist shops have been also authorized to take complaints. And in your own state, the Women and Child Development Department has also rolled out an app to assist women facing domestic abuse. I think what we need to look at, and I'm sure your resource person is going to deal with this, is there are good laws or not so good laws. As with all laws in this country, they're poorly implemented. And the gap is not so much because of a lack of, shall we say, interest, but a lack of capacity. How do you sustain systemic changes? I think that's really the challenge before all of us. And how do you reverse gender-based discrimination? Because that's the larger framework in which we have to look at. And that's where more money comes in, yes, more support comes in, more attention comes into these issues, but also more of us working more in this area to do more. Because I think the fact of abuse of a human being by another is truly one of the most horrendous things that can be done. And it happens with the police in terms of custodial violence. We've seen many cases of this in the past few months. And it is something that is really akin to torture. I mean, you could say that domestic violence is custodial violence because the woman is in custody. She's unable to escape. And it's also a form of torture. So, and this is as good a reason, it's a bit odd perhaps to say this is as good a reason as any for India to ratify the Convention Against Torture. Because what women go through in the four walls of their homes often amounts to little less than torture. So I'll leave these thoughts with you, and I look forward to listening to your resource person on this critical issue. And I know that some of you have been very active in this field for some time, and we are actually documenting the work of the CCG in a short video, which we hope will be ready soon, including issues relating to domestic violence, although this is the CCG's main work on relief during COVID is what is being covered. And thanks to everybody who took part in that process and made it possible. So I'll close here, Dolphy, and hand it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanjoda, for your opening remarks. And the flow of the events will be as follows. We will have Donita introducing our resource person, Advocate Eileen Marcus. Advocate Eileen will then do the session on domestic violence. And we'll also have a little bit of time in terms of case study discussions and round of questions. Having said that, I'd like to introduce Shreya. Are you on the camera? Shreya is our intern with us in Mumbai from Shreya. Can you come on the camera?
Yeah.
Hi. Hi,
She's
Shreya. Welcome, Sanjoda. This is our intern in Mumbai.
Hello.
And Sanjoda, I also want to make, thanks Shreya. I also want to make a special mention of Advocate Eileen, because Advocate Eileen has been with us more than 3 years now in terms of the initial initiation of a thought process on the City Core Group, and then the hand-holding that she gave to us in terms of various trainings that she did for our network. And also she connected us to the District Legal Services Authority, and that's how we were able to cover 120 paralegal volunteers over a period of 6 months. So Eileen has played a very stellar role in the consolidation of the City Core Group. And Eileen, we thank you so much. And I'd like to request Donita to introduce Eileen before Eileen takes over the proceedings.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Okay, if we have to speak about Advocate Eileen Marcus, everyone working in the human rights sector in Bombay knows who Eileen is. So मैं हिंदी और इंग्लिश दोनों में बात करने वाली हूँ. तो एडवोकेट एलिन मार्कुस जी मुंबई में एक प्रसिद्ध वकील और एक्टिविस्ट के रूप में जानी जाती है, और सीसीजी की स्थापना के शुरुआत से ही उन्होंने हमारा बहुत साथ दिया है. उन्होंने मानव अधिकार क्षेत्र में काम करने के वर्षों के दौरान अपनी विशेषज्ञता हासिल की है और बड़े पैमाने पर महिलाओं और बच्चों पर होने वाले अत्याचारों के खिलाफ और फैमिली लॉ के मुद्दों पर एक्सटेंसिवली काम किया है. एडवोकेट आइलीन मार्क्विस एक हाई कोर्ट लॉयर है, इंडिपेंडेंट लॉयर है, और मुंबई डीएलएसए में भी एक पैनल लॉयर है अभी. PWDV Act, that is Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, और इसके इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में पुलिस, कोर्ट, प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर या फिर संरक्षण अधिकारी और एनजीओ की भूमिका पर अपनी विशेषज्ञता वे आज प्रेजेंट करने वाली है. तो आई वेलकम एडवोकेट एलिन to share her expertise today during this session, and thank you for accepting our invitation for doing so. Also एक रिक्वेस्ट है सभी से कि अपने वीडियोस और ऑडियोज ऑफ रखें, और हम जब क्वेश्चन आंसर के लिए फ्लोर को ओपन करेंगे तब आप अपने ऑडियोज और वीडियोस को अनम्यूट करके या फिर ऑन करके रख सकते हो. थैंक यू. ओवर टू यू एलिन.
So good evening. Thank you, Donita, for that introduction, and thank you, Dolphy.
Welcome.
For your kind words. To take the session forward, I take from where Mr. Sanjoy has left the discussion on the law that we have. Okay, so we have a very good law. The law is the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005. And during the lockdown, the law was not put into use the way it had to be in many parts of the country. However, in some parts, we did have some good practices that came to be evolved. So I am happy to share these aspects or certain aspects with regard to practice and procedure with regard to the DV Act as a part of my presentation. And I extend my heartfelt thanks to the City Code Group for having taken up this initiative of legal awareness, or unlocking the law. That is what I say during the lockdown, because it's very important for us to understand the aspects of law before we start practicing the law. So I will take you through my presentation. So is the presentation visible?
Yes, yes, it is visible.
Yes. Okay. So today we are not going to highlight on the law per se, but while understanding the different practices or procedures that are there in the law, we will try to understand certain important sections of the law. घरेलू हिंसा जो है ये एक मानव अधिकार है. मानव अधिकार का हनन जब होता है या फिर मानव अधिकार भंग जब होता है, so that is domestic violence. So we call domestic violence a human rights violation, and that is why we say it is not specifically relating to women, but domestic violence can affect the whole family. घरेलू हिंसा हम समाज में देखते हैं, और घरेलू हिंसा की वजह से जो महिला है उसके स्वास्थ्य को बहुत तकलीफ होती है, और अगर महिला के स्वास्थ्य को तकलीफ है, उसके परिवार के स्वास्थ्य को अगर तकलीफ है, तो समाज के ही स्वास्थ्य की बात यहाँ पे करनी हमारे लिए बहुत जरूरी है. As far as the statistics go, there have been a lot of statistics that have come forth in the past few weeks. However, in April, we saw there was a number of 239 cases, okay, that was said to be recorded. Out of that, 123 cases were specified thereafter. And then in the last 25 days, that is just in before April began and at the end of March, we had cases that came to be reported under the Domestic Violence Act. However, in Mumbai, we had a meeting of various stakeholders under the Domestic Violence Act, and the figure that we have received from all the data that we have collected, around 2,500 cases approximately were handled by various stakeholders. So we are talking about protection officers, service providers, we are talking about certain police, lawyers. So 2,500 for a city of Mumbai, I think, is a very big number. And after the unlock process gets regularized, possibly we will see more cases being filed in court. घरेलू हिंसा के संदर्भ में मुंबई में एक मीटिंग हुई थी सारे जो स्टेक होल्डर्स है उनके साथ, और 2000 से ज़्यादा केसेस हमारे डेटा में कलेक्ट हुए हैं. इसका अर्थ है कि मुंबई में जितने लोग डीवी एक्ट पे काम कर रहे थे, अंदाजन सभी ने एक साथ काम करके 2500 केसेस में रिस्पॉन्ड किया है. Now, when we talk about the Domestic Violence Act, the focus of the act or the source of the act is the Indian Constitution. भारतीय संविधान में महिला को जो हक और अधिकार दिए गए हैं, उन्हीं के आधार पे हम देख रहे हैं ये जो घरेलू हिंसा का कायदा है या कानून है वो बना हुआ है. Now, what are the specific laws? So we have, what are the specific articles? So we have Article 14 that talks about right to equality, Article 15 that talks about prohibition of any form of discrimination, and we have this very specific law for women because of a special right that the woman has under Article 15(3). So a lot of people ask, why are there no laws for men? Why are there laws only for women? And the answer is Article 15(3) of the Constitution. And because of the special status that has been given in the Constitution, we have special laws that are enacted to protect women and to help the process of empowerment of women in the country. घरेलू हिंसा जो कानून बना है वो संविधान में आर्टिकल 15(3), ये जो स्पेशल स्टेटस दिया गया है महिलाओं को, उसी के आधार पे बना है, और इसीलिए हम देखते हैं कि महिलाओं के लिए अलग अलग कानून या स्पेसिफिक कानून बने हुए हैं. Then we have Article 19, freedom of speech and expression, and then Article 21, right to life with dignity. घरेलू हिंसा के संदर्भ में जो मूलभूत हक है उसमें आर्टिकल 14, आर्टिकल 15 और आर्टिकल 21, ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। और आर्टिकल 19 जहां पर हम कहते हैं अपने विचार व्यक्त करने की का स्वतंत्रता या चॉइस करने की जो फ्रीडम है, ये महिला को मिलना बहुत जरूरी है। लॉज टू प्रोटेक्ट विमेन, घरेलू हिंसा ये सिर्फ एक ही लॉ नहीं है, और ये मैं खास करके आप सबको बताना चाहूंगी क्योंकि कई बार हम डीवी एक्ट पे फोकस करके बाकी एक्ट्स के बारे में शायद भूल जाते हैं। तो इसीलिए इट इज इम्पोर्टेंट फॉर अस टू अंडरस्टैंड कि देयर इज द इंडियन पीनल कोड, वी हैव सेक्शन 498A, 304B, 125 CRPC एंड द डीवी एक्ट। ये हम अभी करेंगे 498A इंडियन पीनल कोड का, फिर 304 ब, 125 CRPC जो है मेंटेनेंस रिलेटेड लॉ। Now 125 CRPC is a law that talks about maintenance to parents, children and wife, and it is a very old section of law. Still, even today, cases are filed under section 125 CRPC specifically by parents or specifically by women who are not aware of the DV Act. And in Mumbai, we go to the family court to carry on proceedings under section 125 CRPC. 125 CRPC में जो मेंटेनेंस है या खर्चे का जो हक है वो माता पिता, पत्नी और बच्चों का है। और 125 CRPC के केसेस अगर हम मुंबई में देखेंगे तो फैमिली कोर्ट बांद्रा में फाइल होते हैं। Other than that, we have the Dowry Prohibition Act and we have Criminal Amendment Act rather, which has come after the Nirbhaya case. Now, what is Section 498A? I'm just doing this because during the lockdown, there were cases where women were beaten either with a hockey stick or they were beaten at home with a bat, and women were bleeding. In one case, the woman was pushed from the bed and she was bleeding. And after she went to the NGO, they told her to file a case under the Domestic Violence Act. So friends, in such cases, if there is an injury that can cause threat to the life of a woman, we still have section 498A that can be invoked, and hence it is very important for us to understand the contents of section 498A. Since this is in Marathi, I will speak very little in Hindi with regard to section 498A. But section 498A talks about cruelty by husband or relatives of the husband. So in one case that I was handling, a girl, a lady, was beaten with a hockey stick by her in-laws and she fainted. She was hit on the head and she was unconscious and she was taken to the hospital, and thereafter the process started. So now in this particular case, the police filed a FIR under section 324, which says voluntarily causing hurt with a weapon. But they did not include section 498A in that. Now when somebody hits you on the head, according to the definition or the ingredients of section 498A, there can be a threat to the life of that person. And hence, any kind of cruelty which results to threat to life of the person, or it can lead to depression or mental illnesses, mental health related, or it provokes a person to attempt suicide or commit suicide. Now these are all aspects that are considered under section 498A. Very important for us to understand. सेक्शन 498A में अगर किसी महिला को, विवाहित महिला को, उसके पति या पति के घर वालों से इस प्रकार की शारीरिक हिंसा होती है कि उसके शरीर को या उसके मन को जख्म पहुंचा, और उसके शरीर को जो जख्म पहुंचता है वो इतना धोखा निर्माण करता है कि उसकी जान भी जा सकती है या उसको आत्महत्या की ओर ढकेल रहे हैं, तो ये सब हम सेक्शन 498A में बिठा के अभी भी सेक्शन 498 के अनुसार FIR कर सकते हैं। तो लॉकडाउन में जैसे शुरुआत में कहा गया था कि हिंसा बहुत थी क्योंकि महिला हिंसक के साथ घर में थी, और इसीलिए मारना, पीटना और खून निकलने तक मारना, ये सारी केसेस भी आए हैं। और इन केसेस को डीवी एक्ट में नहीं लेते हुए हम सेक्शन 498A में लेकर बाकी IPC कलम भी लगा सकते हैं। Now 498A jurisdiction. So in one particular case, the lady was beaten, rather the wooden leg of the chair was hit on her body and she was bleeding, and she refused to file a complaint at her matrimonial house or in the jurisdiction of the matrimonial house, and she took a cab and she went to her friend's house. And there, when she was bleeding, when I told her please go and file a complaint, the police told her it is not our jurisdiction. And that is when I had to tell them about section 498A. Has this whole aspect of a new case law that has come. So we have the Rupali Devi versus State of UP. Now in this, we have seen if a woman has taken temporary shelter and the cruelty continues on her. So here the lady was beaten. She went to a temporary shelter. The pain, the anguish of the cruelty continued. Also, there was economic cruelty. There were threats made to her. So 498A could also happen at the place where she has now taken temporary shelter. Section 304B, it is very sad, but during the lockdown, I have personally had 27 calls where women from the, married for less than 5 years of marriage were found dead, and one was very close to Mumbai. However, it was represented that the woman had a fall and she died. But in most cases, on further inquiry, we got to know that there was cruelty and there was abuse. So, if a case has come to be filed, okay, any FIR of a woman who's married for less than 7 years during this lockdown, and if you are handling those cases, please see if there is an element of dowry demand and whether this death would identify as a dowry death. And if this section 304B is not added in that FIR, please, as social workers, make an effort to include these ingredients in that, because a lot of aspects relating to justice to women happens if we know the proper sections of law are put into place. So in one particular case, the girl was married. She went to her parents' house. The husband asked pardon, took her back during the lockdown. And 2 weeks after she went back to her matrimonial house, she was found dead. Now there is a FIR lodged there, but there has been no arrest. So according to me, without reading the FIR, the only thing I can say is possibly section 304B was not invoked, and that is why there has been no arrest till date. घरेलू हिंसा के दायित्व में और एक जो बात आती है वो है हुंडा संबंधित अगर किसी महिला की मृत्यु हुई है। तो इस लॉकडाउन के दरमियान हमने देखा है शादी होने के बाद 5 या 6 साल में अगर महिला की मृत्यु हुई है और ऐसा कोई केस आपके पास आता है, तो सबसे पहले आपको ये देखना है कि क्या इस महिला को किसी भी प्रकार की क्रूरता का अनुभव हुआ है या कभी भी उससे किसी चीज की मांग की है, और हो सकता है कि इस मृत्यु में शायद डाउरी डेथ या हुंडा बड़ी होने की पॉसिबिलिटी है। Now those two were criminal sections in law. Now we move to the DV Act. So the DV Act is a civil law. ये दीवानी स्वरूपी लॉ है। ये हमने पहले सिटी कोर ग्रुप में किया है, तो ज़्यादा डिटेल में नहीं जाते हुए सिर्फ कुछ बातें हम ध्यान रखेंगे। Physical, emotional, economic, verbal and sexual abuse. These are the types of violence. Now very often in cases that are reported by social workers, they say, मैडम लेकिन उसने मारा नहीं है ना, तो डीवी केस कैसे कर सकते हैं? हाँ, 2 बार गाली दी थी लेकिन मारा नहीं है, तो क्या यह डीवी केस होगा? अगर शारीरिक हिंसा है, भावनिक हिंसा है, आर्थिक हिंसा है, शाब्दिक हिंसा है और लैंगिक हिंसा है, तो ये जरूर एक डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस का केस बनेगा। सिर्फ फिजिकल वायलेंस होना जरूरी नहीं है। अगर फिजिकल वायलेंस है और उसकी मात्रा बहुत ज्यादा है, तो शायद वो FIR भी दर्ज हो सकता है। अभी लैंगिक हिंसा के बहुत सारे केसेस लॉकडाउन खुलने पर हमारे सामने आएंगे, क्योंकि बंद दरवाजों में बहुत सारी चीजें हुई है जो शायद महिलाएं हमें फोन पर नहीं बता पाई, लेकिन आगे चल के अगर हमारे पास महिला आती है तो लैंगिक हिंसा के बारे में आप सामने से पूछिए, क्योंकि कई बार महिला शर्माती है या नहीं बताना चाहती है। जैसे अभी लास्ट वीक में एक केस आया था, महिला को पीरियड्स थे और इसीलिए उसने हस्बैंड से कहा कि नहीं, आज हमारे बीच में संबंध नहीं आ सकता है। तो हस्बैंड ने उसकी नाइटी फाड़ के उसे घर से बाहर निकाल दिया, और वैसे ही फटी हुई नाइटी में वो घर से बाहर बैठी हुई थी। लेकिन पुलिस के पास जाना या कंप्लेन करना, ये उसने कहा उसे नहीं करना है। आस पड़ोस के लोगों में से किसी ने मुझे फोन किया और मैंने उस महिला से बात की और पूछा कि हम पुलिस कंप्लेन करें। तो वो बोली नहीं मैडम, मेरा घर है, मैं संभाल लूंगी, आप कुछ कीजिए मत, आगे चल के जरूरत पड़ेगी तो फोन करेंगे। तो लैंगिक हिंसा जो है, कई बार महिलाएं बात आगे लाती नहीं है, शर्माती है, या उन्हें लगता है कि इन चीजों को रिपोर्ट करना जरूरी नहीं है। अभी डीवी एक्ट में डिवोर्स नहीं होता है, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। हमारे पास महिलाएं नॉर्मली आकर बोलती है नहीं रह सकती हूँ, अलग होना है, आई वॉन्ट टू आइदर सेपरेट और आई वॉन्ट अ डिवोर्स। नाउ इन सच केसेस इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर अस टू अंडरस्टैंड that the Domestic Violence Act, okay, my network is fluctuating, so I'll just switch off my video. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. So the first important aspect that we have to understand is, if a woman wants the violence to stop, then we have to file a case under the Domestic Violence Act. Especially during the lockdown, a lot of women wanted the violence to stop, and a lot of women preferred to leave the house because they felt that the house was not safe for them. In such cases, it is important for us to understand that we have Section 18 protection orders, Section 19 residence orders, Section 20 monetary relief, custody orders. So in Maharashtra, there were cases where protection officers helped to regain custody of the children because the custody was with the mother, was with the father. The father had come, during the lockdown and taken back the children. And in such cases, the protection officer has really helped to get back custody. Now, these are the powers that they have. Then we have compensation orders. Now, compensation orders are decided at the case of judgment or at the stage of judgment. Very rarely, compensation orders are decided at the stage of interim relief. And then, most importantly, interim ex parte orders. Now, right to reside. Now, during the lockdown, in a lot of cases, we have seen that women have preferred to leave the house. And when we say women have preferred to leave the house, they have found the house to be unsafe and hence they decided to leave the house. Now, in such cases, it is very important for us to tell the woman that you have a right to reside in that house. And without an order of the court, nobody can take you out. Now, interestingly, during the lockdown, a lot of men, be it husbands or be it sons, they would go ahead and they would talk about telling women that it is very important that a woman should take care of the needs of the house, that a woman should take care of the needs of the house, and if she cannot take care of the needs of the house, then the woman should leave the house. Now, a lot of these aspects were brought out, and because the woman was anyways harassed and troubled, that is why the women did not want to stay in the house, and they wanted to leave the house. Now, these are some things that we have to talk to the women who are there or who come to us for help and make them understand that these are provisions of law, and without an order of the court, nobody can throw you out. So section 17, according to me, is very important. Now section 20. सेक्शन 17 जो है, सामूहिक घर में एक साथ रहना या सामूहिक घर में रहने का अधिकार, ये हर महिला को दिया हुआ अधिकार है. और लॉकडाउन के दरमियान हमने देखा है कि महिला घर में कैद थी, और क्योंकि वो घर में कैद थी इसीलिए कई बार कहा जाता था कि तुम घर से निकलो या हम तुम्हें घर से निकाल देंगे. और महिला टेंशन में या पीड़ित अवस्था में घर छोड़ के जाती थी. लेकिन घर छोड़ के कहाँ जाना है, शेल्टर होम में ले नहीं रहे थे कई बार. और कई बार ऐसे केसेस भी हमारे सामने आए जहाँ पर महिला का जो मैका था या उसके फ्रेंड्स थे वो शहर से काफी दूर थे. तो इन सारी चीजों को ध्यान में रखना हमारे लिए बहुत जरूरी है. सेक्शन 20. अभी मेंटेनेंस की जब हम बात करेंगे तो मेंटेनेंस यानी खर्चा, महिला को जो खर्चा मिलना चाहिए. अभी जो माएँ हैं, कई बार माँ को मारा है, पीटा है, उसकी दवाई उसे नहीं दी है, और इन सब कारणों के वजह से उन्हें बहुत तकलीफ पहुंची है, मेडिकल खर्चे आए हैं. और इन सारी चीजों को हम सेक्शन 20 में लगाकर मेंटेनेंस मांग सकते हैं. तो मेंटेनेंस में लॉस ऑफ अर्निंग्स इम्पॉर्टेंट बात है. मैं मारा है, घरेलू हिंसा हुई है, इसीलिए घर से मैं जा नहीं पाई बाहर, तो लॉस ऑफ अर्निंग्स, मेडिकल एक्सपेंसेस अगर हुए हैं तो, और मेंटेनेंस खुद का और बच्चों का. अभी मेंटेनेंस ऑर्डर्स में कई बार एक प्रॉब्लम आता है, सामने वाला जो है, बेटा है या पति है, वो पैसे भरते नहीं है कोर्ट में, और इसलिए हम सेक्शन 125 सीआरपीसी के अंदर जाकर या उसके अनुसार जाकर वारंट निकलवाते हैं. वारंट के बाद भी नहीं पैसा भरा तो आगे की प्रोसीजर होती है. लेकिन डीवी एक्ट में सेक्शन 26 है, सेक्शन 20 सबसेक्शन 6, और इसमें लिखा गया है अगर प्रतिवादी पैसे कोर्ट में नहीं भरता है तो आप उसके जो एम्प्लॉयर है उनको लेटर लिखकर मैजिस्ट्रेट के पास अर्जी कीजिए कि मैजिस्ट्रेट उसके एम्प्लॉयर को डायरेक्ट करे कि जो हर महीने का मेंटेनेंस है वो इस महिला के अकाउंट में डाले. अभी मेरे जितने भी डीवी केसेस है जहाँ पर हमें पता है हस्बैंड कहाँ काम करता है, वहाँ हमने यही प्रोसीजर ट्राई किया है, और 80% केसेस में महिलाओं को टाइम टू टाइम पैसा मिल रहा है. अभी डीवी एक्ट में जो स्टेक होल्डर्स है, तो डीवी एक्ट में स्टेक होल्डर्स प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर है, संरक्षण अधिकारी, देन वी हैव सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स, सेवा प्रदाता, शेल्टर होम, मेडिकल फैसिलिटीज, लीगल सर्विसेज अथॉरिटी, काउंसलर्स, वेलफेयर एक्सपर्ट्स, पुलिस and one-stop center. Now these are various stakeholders under the law, and it is very important for us to understand the role that each of these stakeholders has under the act. So protection officers for Mumbai jurisdiction wise divide की गई है. प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर्स के जो jurisdiction है वो पुलिस स्टेशन वाइज है. कई बार एक पुलिस स्टेशन का एक प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर होना चाहिए, लेकिन क्योंकि कम प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर्स है इसीलिए 3-4 पुलिस स्टेशन के लिए एक प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर है. तो प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर के साथ आप मिलिए, उनसे बात कीजिए, क्योंकि अगर आप एज अ सिटी कोर ग्रुप नेटवर्क एज सोशल वर्कर्स केसेस प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर्स को रिपोर्ट कर रहे हो या भेज रहे हो तो एक रैपो बिल्डिंग होना बहुत जरूरी है. सेकंड, सर्विस प्रोवाइडर. हमारे यहाँ बहुत सारे एनजीओज है जो अंडर डीवी एक्ट रजिस्टर्ड सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स नहीं है, लेकिन स्पेशल सेल फॉर विमेन एंड चिल्ड्रन है, दैट इज अ रजिस्टर्ड सर्विस प्रोवाइडर. So the service providers which are registered under the act, they have the facility of also filing DIR reports. Then you have shelter homes, we have medical facilities, legal services authority, so DLSA, we have counselors, welfare experts, police, and one-stop center. Now for Mumbai, we have one-stop center at KEM hospital, where at one place you will have legal assistance provided to the woman. They provide a shelter for 5 days there. You also have protection officer over there. So services that are required for victims of domestic violence are provided at such places. Now, the role of the police. What is the role of police under the DV Act? सेक्शन 5 डीवी एक्ट में लिखा है जो पुलिस है, मैजिस्ट्रेट है, सोशल वर्कर्स है, सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स है, ऐसे सारे लोग जो डीवी एक्ट में स्टेक होल्डर्स है, सभी की जिम्मेदारी है सेक्शन 5 के अनुसार कि महिला को डीवी एक्ट की जानकारी दे, संरक्षण अधिकारी या प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर की जानकारी दे, उन्हें सर्विस प्रोवाइडर की जानकारी दे। और डीवी एक्ट एक लॉ है जहां पर महिला की मदद हो सकती है, ये सबसे पहले उसे बताना जरूरी है। Then service of notice, it can be done by the police or it can be done by protection officer. So during the lockdown, a few notices were served by the police, and in cases where we have to report to court within 2 or 3 days of filing, so those are places where we report to the police and we request the police to do service of notice. In cases of bail bond, प्रतिवादी जो है वो घरेलू हिंसा नहीं करेगा और उसका जो बिहेवियर है वो किसी भी प्रकार हिंसक नहीं होगा, ऐसा बेल बॉन्ड भी भरा रहता है। संरक्षण अधिकारी के पास ऑर्डर है, ऑर्डर एग्जीक्यूशन ये भी पुलिस की भूमिका हो सकती है अगर मैजिस्ट्रेट ने डायरेक्ट किया तो। इम्पोर्टेंट जो है वो रूल 9 है, इमरजेंसी केसेस। इमरजेंसी केसेस यानी लॉकडाउन में महिला को मारा है, वो घर में है, वो घर में बंद है, ऐसे केसेस में हम पुलिस की मदद से उस महिला को वहां से छुड़ा सकते हैं। वेपन कॉन्फिस्केट करना, मारा है, पीटा है, किसी चीज से मारा है तो वेपन कॉन्फिस्केट करना भी पुलिस की भूमिका है। और ब्रीच ऑफ प्रोटेक्शन ऑर्डर, सुरक्षा आदेश है, प्रोटेक्शन ऑर्डर है, और अगर वो ब्रीच हो जाता है तो वहां पर पुलिस की भूमिका है और पुलिस रिपोर्ट कर सकते हैं, एफआईआर लॉन्च कर सकते हैं। अभी पीओ की क्या भूमिका है? पीओ की भूमिका है कि वो मैजिस्ट्रेट को असिस्ट करे, डीआईआर बनाए या डोमेस्टिक इंसिडेंट रिपोर्ट फाइल करे, महिला को लीगल एड प्रोवाइड करने की जो प्रोसेस है वो शुरू करे। और ये जो पीओ है वो मैजिस्ट्रेट के आदेश अनुसार काम करते हैं। सर्विस ऑफ नोटिस अंडर सेक्शन 13 ये पीओ की भूमिका है। इमरजेंसी केसेस है, घर पर कोई महिला बंद है और उसे घर से छुड़ाना है, इंफॉर्मेशन मिली है, तो पीओ को लेकर हम इमरजेंसी केसेस में उस महिला की मदद कर सकते हैं। पीओ की भूमिका में सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट जो बात मुझे लगती है वो रूल 10 है। अभी रूल 10 ए के अनुसार पीओ जो है महिला के घर जाकर उसकी होम विजिट कर सकती है और घर में जो वातावरण है या घर की जानकारी या पीड़ित माहौल की जानकारी कोर्ट के सामने रख सकती है। ऑल्सो फाइनेंसेस, कई बार ऐसे होता है कि प्रतिवादी कहाँ काम करता है, क्या काम करता है, उसका क्या लाइफस्टाइल है, ये सब जानकारी कोर्ट में नहीं रहती है, तो हम एप्लीकेशन करके वी कैन आस्क द कोर्ट to direct the PO to inquire into the finances. Then we have assisting the aggrieved person to regain custody of the child and assisting the aggrieved woman in case of breach of order. These are cases where the PO can assist. हमारे पास DLSA है, डिस्ट्रिक्ट लीगल सर्विसेज अथॉरिटी। अभी DLSA में हम सिर्फ फ्री लीगल वकील या फ्री लॉयर के लिए नहीं जाते हैं, लेकिन at DLSA we have a lot of services that are provided. So it is legal aid and advice. If we need advice, we can send women there. ADR, alternate dispute redressal. So now we have a mediation clinic, pre-litigation mediation clinic. So before filing a case in court, if a woman feels that nahi, I just want to see whether it can be sorted without litigation, now this can happen at the ADR. So alternate dispute resolution is available at the DLSA office. There is a permanent Lok Adalat and there is a mediation clinic also that operates. Now, when can a woman seek help? She can seek help before filing a case, during proceedings or post litigation. So during the lockdown, most of the women who sought help never had a case filed in court. They just wanted to report cases of violence. Now, very important for us as social workers to see that if a woman is reporting violence, okay, generally women go and tell the police, DV की case कीजिए, मुझे डीवी केस करनी है, एंड पुलिस से हम नहीं कर सकते हैं, and the police cannot file a case of domestic violence. Okay, the police can only direct you to a protection officer or to a service provider. So it is right, they cannot file a case of domestic violence. However, a police can file or lodge a NC or a FIR, and that would be FIR for hurt, NC for hurt, for voluntarily causing hurt, or for threats that are given, words or gestures that are used to outrage modesty. Now these are portfolio, or this comes within the virtue of the work of the police. घरेलू हिंसा जो कानून है उसके अंतर्गत पुलिस डीवी एक्ट की केस नहीं फाइल कर सकते हैं, लेकिन डीवी एक्ट की केस फाइल करने के लिए सुरक्षा अधिकारी, प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर के पास या सर्विस प्रोवाइडर के पास वो महिला को भेज सकते हैं. दूसरा जो इम्पोर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट है, डीवी एक्ट के अंतर्गत यानी महिला को मारा है और वो अगर पुलिस में जाकर कंप्लेन करती है, तो ऐसे केस में मारा है, मारहान हुई है, शिवीगाळ या फिर गाली गलौज हुई है, ये एस्पेक्ट्स लेकर एनसी या एफआईआर दर्ज हो सकता है. नाउ टाइप्स ऑफ कंप्लेंट्स. As a lawyer, a lot of social workers, they come and they say, पुलिस कंप्लेन किया है मैडम लेकिन अब तक कुछ हुआ नहीं. And then I ask them, कौन सा कंप्लेन किया है? तो मैडम पता नहीं कौन सा कंप्लेन किया है, लेकिन कंप्लेन तो किया है, एफआईआर किया है. अच्छा, एफआईआर किया है, क्या लिखा है एफआईआर में वो पता नहीं, लेकिन एफआईआर किया है. So it is very important for us, to have an understanding of the different kinds of police complaints that are there. And when we go to a doctor's clinic, we have a compounder who does the preliminary checking. So as social workers, if you do that, then it will really help the woman who you are helping. Because if you just take everything and dump it on a lawyer, whether it is a legal aid lawyer or any other lawyer, the lawyer may not be able to read through and understand everything at the first instance, or may not really have the time to handle all of that. So if you're assisting them as social workers, it is very important for you to understand these different aspects. So we have NC complaint, we have FIR, we have general diary entry, and we have a written complaint. Now what is NC complaint? It is a one-page police complaint. It will have 3 or 4 lines where it is recorded whatever instance of abuse the woman has informed. There is no arrest in cases of NC complaint. In cases of FIR, it will be a minimum of 2 or 3 pages document, which will also have a statement of the lady. And in cases of FIR, it will involve arrest in most cases. In some cases, if there is no need to arrest, they will not arrest. And FIR is a criminal complaint. Now, general diary entry, earlier there used to be a small piece of paper where they used to write the date and they used to put an acknowledgement of the police station. Now that is called a general diary entry. Then we have written complaint. Very often social workers and women complain, the police is not taking our complaint. So what do? Now here there are different approaches to the situation. Some suggest that you sit in the police station, you dial 100 or you dial 103 and you say you have come to the police station and you are not getting help. Or you sit there and you tweet on their Twitter handle, or you send an email with a written complaint, or you go to the station house office, SHO, or you go to the Avak Javak, wherever it is, and there you give a copy of your complaint and get an acknowledgement from them. So these are different processes that are there in terms of police complaints. Now litigation. Many times, women file cases in court, but they do not know what is the nature of the case. Now in such cases, it is important for us as social workers to tell them that litigation is a conscious decision and it should be a planned decision. A woman should be prepared for the stages in a case and how to carry on with that case. The same way, if you want to file a DV case in court, it is important for you to see who is an aggrieved woman. Now, who is an aggrieved woman? Any woman who is living or has lived in a domestic relationship with the respondent. She may be a wife, mother, widow, daughter-in-law, or any woman who is in a relationship in the nature of marriage. So now if you saw recently, there was a newspaper article that said that there was the second wife of some police person who has approached the High Court to get the relief, monetary relief that has been sanctioned to this person who died as a corona warrior. Now in such cases, we see that after a person is married for the first time, without getting a divorce from the first wife, the person gets married to another person. Now in such a case, it is very important for us to understand that this would amount to relationship in the nature of marriage, or they have lived together, children are born, but there is no evidence of certificates of marriage. That would amount to relationship in the nature of marriage. पीड़ित व्यक्ति कौन है? सेक्शन 2A डीवी एक्ट के अनुसार ऐसी महिला जो घरेलू नाते में एक प्रतिवादी के साथ रही है, वो पत्नी, बहन, माँ, बेटी या शादी जैसे रिश्ते में रहने वाली महिला हो सकती है, तो ये महिला घरेलू हिंसा की केस फाइल कर सकती है. नाउ important aspect, I just put this under the Hindu Marriage Act. It is important for us to understand who can get married. Okay, so during the lockdown, a few people also got married, and they went either to a temple and got married, or they just had some vidhi in the house and they got married. So it is very important to understand certain aspects of marriage. So under the Hindu law, only two people who are Hindus can get married under the Hindu law, and there are criteria that are given by law. It is important for you to register your Hindu marriage. So if you have performed your marriage, it is important for you to register. So as social workers, as lawyers, if we know of cases where people have got married, please tell them to register their marriage, because during the lockdown, the marriages may not be totally as sanctioned or as proposed by law. And after that, we might have cases where people might claim that we never got married. So please ensure that there is a registration of marriages that you come to know about. Now, against whom can I file a DV complaint? Against any person who is or has been in a domestic relationship with the aggrieved person. अभी ये जो प्रतिवादी है, प्रतिवादी का पहले पुरुष और पुरुष के जो महिला रिश्तेदार थे ऐसा कानून में लिखा था, लेकिन अभी हमारे पास जजमेंट है और प्रतिवादी ये महिला भी हो सकती है, लेकिन इम्पोर्टेंट है दोनों का एक सामूहिक घर में रहना और दोनों के बीच में घरेलू रिश्ता होना बहुत जरूरी है. घरेलू रिश्ता क्या है? व्हाट इज डोमेस्टिक रिलेशनशिप? दो व्यक्ति अगर कभी भी किसी भी वक्त एक साथ एक घर में रहे हैं, एक छत के नीचे रहे हैं और शादी से उनका रिश्ता बना है या ब्लड रिलेशनशिप है, तो उसे हम घरेलू रिश्ता कहेंगे. व्हाट इज अ शेयर्ड हाउस होल्ड? A shared household is any house where two people, the applicant and the respondent, have lived together or live even now. It is very important in every case of domestic violence that there should have lived in a shared household and there should be a domestic relationship. If there is no domestic relationship, the case doesn't stand. If they never lived in the shared household, the case will not stand. Like we have the famous case of Rajesh Khanna, where there was a lady who was taking care of him and she filed a case against Dimple Khanna and the children. Now in this particular case, the court has observed and there is an order that has come to be passed that Twinkle, Dimple, Akshay, they have never lived together with the applicant, and that is why they do not fall within the definition of a respondent, because they have not shared household with them. Now, when we are reporting cases of domestic violence, it is important for us to know the date of the incident, the place and time of the incident, the type of violence, person who has caused the violence, what is the impact or the evidence of the violence. घरेलू हिंसा या कोई भी केस अगर हम हिंसा से संबंधित अगर रिपोर्ट करते हैं, तो तारीख, कहाँ हुई ये घटना, कब हुई घटना, हिंसा कौन से प्रकार की है, किसने हिंसा की है और हिंसा की वजह से क्या चोट पहुंची है या हिंसा संबंधित क्या हमारे पास एविडेंस है, उन चीजों को लिखना बहुत जरूरी है. अभी अर्जी कौन कर सकता है? प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर, महिला, या महिला को रिप्रेजेंट करने के लिए कोई भी व्यक्ति मैजिस्ट्रेट के सामने केस फाइल कर सकता है. Is there some instruction? Okay. Now important, section 14 of the DV Act. Section 14 of the DV Act talks about counseling. अभी ये जो काउंसलिंग है सेक्शन 14 ऑफ द डीवी एक्ट में, ये कोर्ट में केस जब चल रहा है तब के बाद की काउंसलिंग है. अभी कोर्ट में केस चल रहा है और प्रतिवादी और जो महिला है उनको अगर लगता है कि इस मैटर को हमें खत्म करना है या फिर हमें काउंसलिंग के बाद आगे बढ़ना है, तो इस केस में हम काउंसलिंग के लिए अर्जी कर सकते हैं. प्रोसीडिंग्स टू बी हेल्ड इन कैमरा, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट अंडर द डीवी एक्ट. अगर उन्हें लगे कि नहीं हमें हमारा केस ओपन कोर्ट में नहीं चलाना है तो हम इन कैमरा प्रोसीडिंग्स की मांग कोर्ट में कर सकते हैं. वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, इंटरिम ऑर्डर. डीवी एक्ट में एक्स पार्टे इंटरिम ऑर्डर मिले हैं और अभी भी मिलते हैं. एक्चुअली मैंने कुछ कॉपीज भी डाले हैं, एक आपको मैं बताती हूँ, बाकी प्रेजेंट केसेस चल रहे थे उनके कॉपीज थे तो मैंने, क्योंकि ये फेसबुक लाइव है इसीलिए उन्हें डिलीट कर दिया, लेकिन ये केस खत्म हुआ है इसीलिए ये बता रही हूँ आपको. तो यहाँ पर opponents are directed not to commit an act of domestic violence against the applicant. अभी ये जो केस है, जिस दिन हमने कोर्ट में केस फाइल किया था 2016 में, उस दिन महिला और पुरुष, पति और पत्नी एक ही घर में रहते थे. इसीलिए हमने कोर्ट से ऑर्डर लिया कि जब नोटिस जाएगी उसे, तो हो सकता है कि हिंसा की मात्रा बढ़े या हिंसक हो जाए, इसीलिए हमें एक तरफा सुरक्षा आदेश या प्रोटेक्शन ऑर्डर की जरूरत है और इसीलिए नोटिस के साथ हमें ये ऑर्डर दिया गया. 2016 में भी ऑर्डर मिला, 2020 में भी ऐसे ऑर्डर्स मिले हैं. अभी दूसरा एक केस है जहां पर कई बार कहा जाता है कि प्रतिवादी कोर्ट में आता है लेकिन he does not file his reply. He comes to court but he never files his reply and the matter has got prolonged and we are just going from dates to dates. Now this is a very important aspect. If you see point number 4, it says till the respondent does not file his reply, this ex parte interim order of protection will continue to exist or continue in operation. So what does this mean? If you read the whole case, it states that the respondent received the notice, he appeared in court, but he has been delaying to file the reply. And because he has been delaying to file the reply and there is continuance of violence, hence the court has passed this order. Now this is a 2019 order. Now under the DV Act, we have procedures under the CPC, CRPC and Indian Evidence Act. So what is CPC? Code of Civil Procedure. CRPC, Code of Criminal Procedure. So very often we see that there are different procedures that are taken by the magistrate. Now all of that are in conformity to the laws that we have, and that is why we have the Indian Evidence Act. Now for every case that we heard, there are two sides of the story. And so it is important, for us to understand how cases in court operate. So if a case is filed by a protection officer, the protection officer will file a DIR, Form 1, Form 2, Form 3 and Form 5. Form 1 is a DIR, Form 2 is an application to the magistrate, Form 3 is an affidavit and Form 5 is a safety plan. Now if the woman is filing a case on her own or through a lawyer, then the DIR is not filed. It is only an application that is made and documents are filed. Now कई बार ऐसी क्वेरी आती है कि 2 साल से केस चल रहा है, 3 साल से केस चल रहा है लेकिन कोई ऑर्डर नहीं हुआ है. तो ऑर्डर क्यों नहीं हुआ है? प्रतिवादी को क्या नोटिस गई है? नोटिस उसे सर्व हुई है? नोटिस सर्व होने के बाद क्या वो सर्विस रिपोर्ट कोर्ट में फाइल हुआ है? क्या प्रतिवादी कोर्ट में हाजिर हुआ है? और उसके बाद भी अगर वो नहीं रिप्लाई फाइल करता है तो कोर्ट एक्स पार्टे ऑर्डर फाइल दे सकते हैं और ये एक्स पार्टे ऑर्डर इंटरिम हो सकता है. और ये बहुत जरूरी है. अगर आप महिला के वकील हो या महिला के तरफ से कोर्ट में जा रहे हो, तो आपको देखना है कि ये मैटर क्यों 2-3 साल से अटका है, इस मैटर में क्या हुआ है। तो मेरे पास एक केस था जहां पर जो महिला थी वो 2 साल से कोर्ट जाती थी, लेकिन वो कोर्ट के दरवाजे तक जाकर वापस आती थी, वो कभी भी कोर्ट के अंदर नहीं जाती थी, और इसीलिए उसका मैटर डिसमिसल के लिए लगाया था। अभी ये ऐसे कई केसेस हमारे पास आते हैं जहां महिला कोर्ट में जाती नहीं है या प्रेजेंस मार्क करती नहीं है, और इसीलिए हमें स्टेटस देखना जरूरी है। अभी ये सारे प्रोसीजर्स है कोर्ट के, और ऑन एन एवरेज किसी भी केस में 20 से 25 स्टेप्स रहते हैं, और ये हर स्टेप एक अच्छे फॉर्म में जाए, ये हर केस के लिए बहुत जरूरी है। तो वकील होने के नाते अगर मेरे पास कोई केस आता है कि मैडम हमारा मैटर 2-3 साल से पड़ा है कोर्ट में, पता नहीं क्या हुआ है, so in that case I will always ask them whether your matter is stuck on point 4, point 5, point 6. Now these are very important aspects for us to understand. Section 31, breach of protection order. Now during the lockdown, there have been instances of breach of protection order. So if there is a breach of protection order, if there is an order from the court and that the magistrate has directed that the woman be protected from any form of domestic violence, then in such a case, if the order is breached and if violence continues, then the magistrate can take cognizance under section 31 of the act, or we can go to the protection officer and ask the protection officer to report the matter under section 31 to the court. अभी यहाँ पर पूरा डीवी एक्ट सिविल लॉ है, लेकिन सेक्शन 31 ऑफ द एक्ट क्रिमिनल लॉ है, और सेक्शन 31 ऑफ द एक्ट क्रिमिनल सेक्शन होने की वजह से there is an imprisonment that may extend to 1 year and the fine of 20,000 rupees. That is the maximum, or it can be both. Okay. So if a police can file a FIR under the DV Act, they can only file a FIR under section 31 of the Act. घरेलू हिंसा कानून में अगर सुरक्षा या संरक्षण आदेश भंग हो जाता है तो ब्रीच ऑफ प्रोटेक्शन ऑर्डर भंग हुआ है, इसीलिए सेक्शन 31 के अंतर्गत FIR दर्ज हो सकता है, या प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर एक अर्जी कोर्ट में करके इस मैटर को लेने के लिए कोर्ट के सामने एप्लीकेशन कर सकते हैं। अभी सेक्शन 32 इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। सेक्शन 32 सेज इट इज ऑन द सोल टेस्टिमनी ऑफ द वुमन दैट द ब्रीच कैन बी रिकॉर्डेड। तो ब्रीच ऑर्डर हुआ है इसका एविडेंस जमा करना जरूरी नहीं है। महिला के सोल कहने पर, या अगर महिला कहती है कि नहीं आदेश इस तरह से भंग हुआ है, तो उनके अकेली के स्टेटमेंट पर ये FIR लॉन्च हो सकता है। और सेक्शन 31 का जो ऑफेंस है वो कॉग्निजेबल ऑफेंस है, यानी FIR दर्ज होने वाला है, और नॉन बेलेबल ऑफेंस है। अभी जब हम लॉ देखते हैं तो इसमें कलम और नियम देखते हैं। So we have to see Rule 15 with Section 31. So during the lockdown, when there was a breach of protection orders, and when the women or the protection officer went to the police station, the police refused to lodge the FIR, and then we had to take them through Rule 15. Now Rule 15 says every report shall be in writing, and then it gives further directions with regard to bail conditions as well. So all of this has to be brought to the notice of the person, whoever is refusing you the FIR. Now, under the DV Act, DV Act is an addition to existing laws. So if there is already a case that is filed, the woman can file an application for DV reliefs in the same pending procedure. So if there is a divorce case filed, or if there is any other case filed in the family court, even there under section 26 of the Act, in the same pending proceedings, she can file an application for DV reliefs. This is very important for us to understand. तो ऑलरेडी अगर महिला का और उसके पति का या बेटे का केस कहीं पे फाइल है, तो वहीं पर वो घरेलू हिंसा संबंधित जो मैटर है उसके लिए अर्जी कर सकती है। Now there are many aspects of law that are there before us, and it is very important for us to understand how to use these provisions of law. So I will just conclude with one example. There was a case that was referred, I think, by the City Court Group, and in that case this lady was beaten by her husband, and after she was beaten by the husband, she wanted to leave that house, or she wanted to move out of that house. Now all that that lady wanted is, she wanted a child custody, or she wanted a child to be with her. Now very often when cases are referred, or whenever a woman wants to file a case or report violence, the whole family will talk. So you will have the parents, brother, sister, everybody talking. And as a lawyer, all these things add a lot of stress. So it is very important for you to empower the woman, that she can take decisions on her own. Because if this is how the whole understanding of a case goes, then very important and relevant facts may be missed. And another thing that is important for us to understand or to look at is, whenever we are talking about cases of domestic violence, the woman should know what is her right. She should know what are the facilities, or what are the different provisions under law that can help her. So to conclude, in one particular case, it was a mother. The mother today is 77 years old, and this mother had a lot of struggles. And when I say a lot of struggles, she had a very difficult childhood. After marriage, she had a very difficult life, and over a period of time, she purchased a 2-bedroom house. Now in that 2-bedroom house, she lives with her married son and daughter-in-law. There have been instances of violence throughout the time that they lived, and primarily because as a senior citizen, she wanted to do yoga, she wanted to eat a particular diet, but all this was not available. Now, when this matter went to court, the magistrate there asked the mother and the son if the matter can be amicably settled. And the amicable settlement was, both of you decide how you all want to divide the house or divide staying in the house. So the mother said, till I die, I want to stay in my 2-bedroom house. And the son said, no, I have a big family, so I don't want to live in a small house. Let my mother shift there. There was a lot of chaos. There was a lot of argument. There was a lot of tension. And finally, the judge took a stand, and she said, under section 17 of the act, your mother has a right to stay in that house. And that is her house, to add to it. So she can surely demand rent in alternative. So if you want her to leave that house, she's ready to leave that house, but you have to give her equivalent rent of that house. Now, when the magistrate made that stern statement, and she said, either you agree this way or I will pass an order. So the magistrate was trying to work out an amicable settlement. Very often in cases of domestic violence, we see that the problem that is there, the way the problem is portrayed, does not show violence. Like in this lady's case, when she started narrating the instances of violence that were there, it added to the whole concept of victimized mother, and she was really harassed a lot. So it is very important for us to specify instances of violence and abuse when we are reporting cases. Now, once the lockdown, once things are normal and once we go back to normal life, there will be cases that are reported to us. The first question that we have to ask the woman is, are you interested in continuing this marriage? If the woman says yes, then we give her an option of domestic violence. But in most cases, women do not know that they can file a case under the Domestic Violence Act. And so what they do is, they just come and they say, we want to file for divorce, so we want to separate. So as social workers, as lawyers, these are some things that we have to keep in mind, that talk about certain roles and responsibilities that we have. Now, protection orders clearly specified. Can women file for interim applications? Yes. Under section 23 of the act, you can file for interim protection, but you have to pray for ex parte relief, and that is very important. During the lockdown, there were at least 4 or 5 cases filed, and none of those women prayed for ex parte relief. Okay, so they continued, the matter continues in court. So it depends on how aggressive you are or how important those reliefs are for you, and you have to present it before the court that yes, these reliefs are very important and urgent for me. So there was one case where there was continuous threat to the child. Now in that case, we did get ex parte orders. In another case, there was a threat that the house would be sold. And in a case where there is a threat that the house will be sold, it is again urgent and important. And an application to that effect was moved in court. There was a social media ad that said that this particular house is up for sale. That was presented in court. And thereafter, we got an order to stay the sale of that house till alternate arrangement for the lady is not made. Then there was another case during the lockdown where the leave-in license agreement had expired, and the landlord was calling the woman constantly and telling her to leave the house because now he wanted to engage or have another tenant there. Now, in that particular case, again, the matter went to court. There was already a pending litigation in court, but we filed an application for urgent ex parte orders stating that the husband should either make alternate arrangement for her stay or the lease or the leave-in license of the present house should be extended. Now, in that case, the matter is kept for orders next week. Possibly, some sort of an arrangement will be made. So, it is very important to respond as particular cases are there or presented before us. So, we can open for questions.
Thank you, Eileen, for this very insightful, as usual. Your style of presentation with cases is extremely interesting and easy to understand. Thank you once again. I'll request Donita to take charge of the questions that have come in, plus some cases that have been come to our attention. I'm in the CCG group in terms of some sort of guidance, because some of this will be benchmarks in terms of our CCG volunteers and networks relating to complainants or survivors of domestic violence. Yeah, Donita?
Thank you, Dolphy. Yeah, so Aileen, Kutub has a question that what if the protection officer or local police officer does not help implementing court order? On the contrary, suppose the husband and demoralizes the woman.
If the protection officer does not help in implementing the order, first of all, does the order have a specific direction to the protection officer or the local police station? Very important, okay? If there is no direction for the protection officer or the local police officer to help the woman, then they are not duty bound to help the woman. So whether that direction is there, that is important. If it is there and still they do not help, then you can write to the magistrate, make an application to the magistrate how you have approached the protection officer or the police officer for help and how they have declined the help. So for this, it is better to read the court order and then you can take it. As far as the second aspect of the question is concerned, contrary supports the husband and demoralizes the woman. So I would only want to say here that we are in a patriarchal setup, okay? And the patriarchal system that we deal with has a lot of challenging systems to offer us. So during the lockdown, there was a case where a woman reported violence, and after she reported violence, she was told by the police that Corona and COVID times are more serious, and ek jhapad mara, that is not really very serious. So these are certain things that we have to understand. So we have to work with the system to sensitize them and to make them understand that this is professional and personal, has to have a different approach.
Okay, thank you so much. Kutub, you want to add something?
As Alan said, like, one should know whether it is being directed to the protection officer or the local police officer. I have not seen the order, but this is the case of Kamal, Donita, and I'm wondering, like, on what capacity the protection officer is, like, pressurizing the woman or the local police officer. Secondly, if it is a court order, so is it necessary, like mandatory to be mentioned, like this should be implemented by so and so police station or protection officer,
Yes,
or without
yes.
even that,
No.
she can get help from the local police?
If you saw the presentation, it said at the directions of the magistrate. So the police and the protection officer can act only at the directions of the magistrate. So that has to be specifically mentioned. and it is mentioned, yes. So maybe sometime if we do not have a Facebook live, I will share those orders where the specific direction to the magistrates are mentioned.
Yeah, so this order does have a specific direction to the local police station. And even then, there was no protection order as such. Like, even then, there was no support from the local
So
police
what
station.
does the order say? Do you have a copy of that order?
Yeah, I have it. I'll forward it
So
to
can
you.
you read it? You can not read the names. You can just read the order.
It was a residence order, no, Donita?
There's a protection order also in that.
So you can just read the order, Donita. Then we
Okay,
can.
I'll do that in a while. In the meanwhile, there are questions. Um, okay, so there is one question that is asking, what are the remedies for domestic violence caused when it has been more than 10 years of marriage?
The remedies will remain the same irrespective of the number of years of marriage.
And for cases of domestic violence, what is the exact procedure you would have to go with to get an order for counseling? In addition, can mental health aid only be provided by organizations and professionals that officially work with the police?
Exact procedure would be the same, no? If you're filing a case in court, if you want only the counseling aspect to be taken care of, then in that particular case, only for counseling, you can go to the service provider, okay, and tell the service provider that I want counseling, and then ask for counseling. This is pre-litigation. So I did those 3 stages. We did litigation, pre-litigation, and post-litigation. So at the pre-litigation stage, if you want counseling, then we have the DLSA, District Legal Services Authority, that can provide counseling. We have service providers that can provide counseling. And even there, if you go to the protection officer and tell the protection officer to refer you to a counselor, even that is possible. So it will depend on which stage you want the counseling. If you want it after filing a case in court, then you have to make an application under section 14. Now under the criminal law, that is the CRPC. So that is where the magistrate, we go for complaints, no? In Mumbai we file the cases before the magistrate. So in the magistrate's court, there is no option for counseling. So it primarily says mediation. So we file an application for mediation, and through mediation we direct it or ask it for counseling. So these are different ways to approach the situation.
Thank you. That was really helpful. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, should we go ahead with another question? So I've, Nadine, I have forwarded you the court order. So the last part of it says that न्याय निर्णयाच्या प्रति पक्षकार व पोलीस ठाणे प्रभारी पोलीस ठाणे वर्ली ह्यांना विनामुळे पुरविण्यात यावेत. So
Okay, so
विनामूल्य पुरविण्यात यावे.
So I'll just read it loud because it is there. So now this order says प्रतिवादीस अर्जदार हिचेवर कौटुंबिक हिंसाचार करण्यापासून प्रतिबंध करण्यात येते. Okay, so this is a protection order. प्रतिवादीने अर्जदार व मुलगा यांचे whatever house या 1 महिन्याआधी निवास व्यवस्था. So there is a residence order which has to be implemented. Then there is a maintenance order. न्याय निर्णयाच्या प्रति पक्षकार व पोलीस ठाणे प्रभारी पोलीस ठाणे वर्ली यांना बिनामूल्य. Okay, so there is no implementing body. What it says is the copy of the order should be given to the applicant and the police station free of cost.
Okay. Okay.
बिनामूल्य पुरवण्यात यावेत.
Okay, so
Okay,
I
so
read
it is
that as
just,
something
yeah.
else. Okay.
And there is a nuksan bharpai order. So there is no implementing agency.
Okay, so then in this case, we can write an application to the magistrate for the same, right?
No, so what is the problem in this case?
The case was that the woman, I had, so basically the order was passed in December 2019. And till date, she wasn't able to enter a house, and her husband had put it up on rent after the order was passed. and she was still living in the shelter home. So that was and she couldn't get to her house even after residence order was passed.
Okay. So now in this case, is this the final order?
So the lawyer has not gotten in touch with the client, and that is the reason there's a lot of confusion whether it is a final order or not.
So isn't this a very stupid, assumption, or rather, I would say that the first step, okay, how I would deal with this case. The first step I would do is go online and check what is the status of this case, okay.
Okay.
And because we tend to give a lot of importance to lawyers, and women forget that their cases, their whole life depends on their case. But for lawyers, their case is one among the many files that we have. So women should take charge of the case, and as social workers also, we can always go online and check what is the status of the case, and thereafter check what is the next date or what has happened. Now, why is that important? It is important because if you see up, it says Nishani Kramanka 8. So this is an order which is passed on Exhibit 8. If the matter is pending in court and the woman has not gone to court, you can understand from October till today, it is possible that there is no presence marked in court. So that is one problem. The second problem would be no stage has proceeded because the woman has not gone to court. The third thing is, today if she wants to ask for execution of this order, she makes an application in the pending court case that is there. But if the case is over, then she has to file a new case asking for execution of this order that she has received. So there are different aspects that will have to be understood depending on whether the case is going on in court or whether the case is over.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Vanita, Kamal is at her residence now. She is able to enter into the residence, and the tenant which was there, she paid him the deposit money, and now she's staying with her son there. And we are guiding her on phone and also helping her, counseling her on phone. And her uncle, who was part of this, who was trying to negotiate with her husband and Kamal, we requested Kamal to tell her uncle not to be.
So I will suggest don't take the client's name because we are on air and.
Sorry, I forgot we are on Facebook. So yeah, sorry. So the husband right now is trying to contact directly to his wife, and the uncle is no more mediating in this case. So she is at her house now.
Yeah, so but we need to still look at the fact that because in my what I did look up when I looked it up on the court website, it was a final order that was passed in this case. But I'll still again I'll relook at it. But yeah, so we should, like, this is a good learning for the.
It said that case is over.
Yeah. So.
Okay. So do you know where her husband is employed at the moment?
Yeah, he works for a company in Kalyan. Yeah.
So you can make an application under section 26, section 20, subsection 6 of the Act, and ask for that money from his salary to be deducted, to include it as a part of the maintenance amount that the lady, has been directed or has availed from the court.
Okay. All right. Oh, that's nice. Okay. So I can, Section 26, subsection 6, right?
No, section 20, subsection 6.
Okay. All right.
Irene, can I take a minute of yours?
Yes. Who's
this?
Irene?
Yes. Sorry.
Can I take a minute of yours?
Please go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Irene, in such cases, supposing you want to play as a role, to be a social activist to help people in the area, then in that cases you got to understand the things, how to go about it. So how can you play an important role in that to guide us? My question is over.
I didn't understand the question, sorry.
No, if you want to be a social activist and help out people in cases of domestic violence, how do you suggest a normal citizen could do that?
Or we can do it, supposing we are citizens. We want to help people, and we are not absolutely not aware of how to go about it.
Okay.
So you will be able to guide us. Sorry?
Rakesh, can I interview? Rakesh,
Yeah.
we have now a city core group, okay, which basically is involved in this type of a process of networking with our groups. How do we help people who have this sort of complaints? So initially, it's like learning the ropes. Today, what Eileen shared with us was the whole aspect of the act, understanding the act, the various facets, along with case studies. In one session, you will not be able to learn everything, but it's important that, let's say you come across some victim, complainant, or survivor who contacts you for help. You connect with us, no? You have our numbers. Rakesh, you have my number, I think, at least. We can send you our numbers. You can connect with us in terms of guidance. And then that will be the hand-holding in terms of learning the process of dealing with situations. Am I clear, Rakesh? Rakesh,
Right,
you're
he's on mute.
Yeah.
Another aspect which I think is, it's very important to see whether the woman wants help. Like the example where I gave you, the lady was in her torn clothes outside the house and she refused help. So you can help someone who wants to be helped, because otherwise, if you report the case either to the police or the protection officer and the person backs out, then it might not be a very good situation to handle. So I will suggest, if you want to work in the neighborhood, like Dolphy said, yes, hand holding, putting her in touch with organizations, and also making her aware that what is happening on her is domestic violence. Like during the lockdown, I have been doing a lot of sessions on creating awareness on the act, and a lot of women have started realizing that what was happening to them was not husband's love, but it was actually domestic violence defined under the law. And so they started contacting NGOs and asking for help. And they said that we have been conditioned to believe कि शादी तो ऐसे ही है जिसमें मारना पीटना होता है, और हमें लगा कि हमारी शादी नॉर्मल है. लेकिन आप अभी बता रहे हो कि कानून कहता है ये घरेलू हिंसा है. So that is why women have started talking about or discussing about domestic violence.
Thanks, Aileen. So Jaya ma'am has a comment as well here. Okay, don't you think the magistrate courts are not the appropriate court for such matters? The magistrates are not very sensitive to women's cases.
Ma'am, in my understanding, I have had the best of experiences at the magistrate court. I have had very good orders. So even in March, we had an ex parte order. So I personally believe that it would depend from court to court and magistrate to magistrate. However, the magistrate courts are more reachable. A lot of women are able to reach the courts. They are closer. If we define it to just one court or confine it to just one court, then travel and other aspects might be difficult. So what I do as a lawyer is, even when I'm sitting in court, I do share judgments that have happened time and again, or even when I argue applications. In most of my cases, I ask for ex parte relief, and the response has been quite helpful. So even with Section 31, I have not had a lot of problem. Even during the lockdown, we've managed a few cases, through the proper judicial process. So personally, I believe that the magistrates court are more closer to women, and in terms of procedure, yes, they are more faster as compared to the other sessions.
Thanks, Aileen. Okay, do we have any more questions? We could take one or two more.
Any of the cases, Donita, most of them have been shared with.
They have been addressed already during her session. So.
Okay. One of the things, Eileen, in one case we observed that because of lockdown, the husband was not here. He was out of station. One fine day he comes home and bashes up his wife very badly.
Okay.
So luckily that police station is close by, so the wife lands up at the police station. At which point of time the police guys are cooperative. They call the husband to the police station. Okay. They talk everything very sanely without registering any NC or anything, because the wife also didn't want to pursue that from that point of view. And then they go home. After going home, again the guy beats her very badly.
Okay.
why you went to the police station. Again, the wife lands up at the police station. Again, the husband is called. Then the police, I believe, wrap the husband, they beat him up. Okay.
Okay.
But what they do finally is that they tell the wife that, do you have any relatives here, so that for the moment you can move out from this house. So
Okay.
we want to know what sort of a safety measure is there given this particular dimension, where the police also tell her, then do you have, supposing the lady does not have any place, you know, she says that I have my cousin brother where I can move. So they request her, you please move to your cousin brother. So what are the processes like in a situation like this, where maybe the lady might not have any other alternate place?
So they sent her to her brother's house.
Yes, yes.
So if you can tell me afterwards which police station it is.
This is MIDC Andheri.
Okay. So then we can address this issue specifically there.
Okay.
Now, in emergency cases, like in cases that we deal with, especially cases of domestic violence, if there was assault, in her case, she was bleeding, she was beaten. So, depending on the nature of the injury, the police would register a complaint. What the police did here is they did not register a complaint. Okay. Now, they did not register a complaint at the first instance, nor at the second instance.
Correct.
So this is something which she has to give in writing at the police station.
Okay.
Because it also works towards dereliction of their duty. No, they have not performed their duty.
Okay.
And if it is a cognizable offense that was brought to their light.
Okay.
Secondly, in aspects of why they sent her there, it was like a quarantine period. Quarantine, let him quarantine at his place, you quarantine at your place. So both of you cool down, and thereafter we can try to work out a solution.
Okay.
This is not very appropriate, because
Okay.
had there been a FIR, possibly he would be arrested. Okay. And anyways, the house would then be safe for the woman.
Correct.
By telling the woman to move out of the house, there are a lot of dangers associated. The lock or the key can be changed. The woman may not be allowed back into the house. So it would require a lot of effort on her part to regain access to that part of the house. So I do not suggest that.
Okay.
Ideally, I would have made a written complaint sitting there at the police station, or sent a tweet. Okay. And then I would have moved ahead and said, now I'm going back to that house, and if there is violence, so see, the first thing, this woman could have called the police from the house. She could have dialed 103.
Correct.
And that would be a much better approach to the situation. Once you go to the police station, then there are a lot of these aspects. But there are certain cases I have seen where even in the gadi, in the van, they tend to tell them, don't complain or take back your complaint. And that as well has happened. During the lockdown, one case got reported where a lady with a 4-month-old baby called the police helpline, and she was told to come to the police station, but she couldn't go to the police station there. So there could have been a good practice where the police van could have taken her to the police station. Okay, so these are some things that we have to evaluate over a period of time. But there was another case that had come, and in this particular case, an unwed mother had given birth to a child.
Okay.
And at that hospital, the so-called boyfriend was taken in custody, or was kept, at the police station. He was detained at the police station. He was detained at the hospital, and they were trying to influence the mother to file a complaint.
Okay.
Now here, the lady didn't want to complain. So then we worked out a policy, or worked out a strategy whereby it was a adult, it was a consenting adult. The decision not to complain was out of a consenting adult, and so no complaint could be filed. So there we spoke to the senior and process that when the woman herself does not want to file any complaint, please do not file. So such interventions can help. So if you get to know of a similar case that happened, where the lady was told to move out of the house, she can immediately call up somebody, call up a social worker or a protection officer, and then we can put things on record and tell
So
them.
here there was one of our network partners that was involved in guiding this particular lady, but I think somewhere along the way it was missed out, Eileen, in terms of people not knowing what the processes are, because they said.
Oh, see, Section 17 of the Act, no, I keep hammering on that. Section 17 of the DV Act. every woman has a right to reside in her house, and without an order of the court, nobody can tell her to leave that house.
Okay.
Was the police officer following any order of the court in telling her to leave the house? What he was doing there was a more human approach. Let's
Okay.
cool off the situation, so you leave the house. But then it was in violation of section 17 of the act. So
Okay.
these are some things that have to be understood.
Shreya, you want to share your
Okay,
case you're handling that?
yes. So Shreya is our intern has one question is if the abusers have psychological disorders and an FIR or DV isn't being filed because of the same, even though the abusers, that are the mother and the brother, have threatened to kill the family members, what legal options could one go with?
So is there a document to state that they have psychological disorders? And do they have?
Shreya,
So
can you come online?
the burden is on them, no, to prove that they have psychological disorders. When a lady goes to file a complaint, based on the statement that she gives, FIR will be filed, and it is not possible that a DV is not filed because of this. Okay, so
Shreya, can you come in?
Hi.
hi Shreya.
So we've tried to go for an FIR and DV, whatever could be possible.
No, you didn't pick up what Advocate Eileen Marcus mentioned. That is there any certificate or documentation to say that there is a issue of
So
disorder?
we do have a few documents, but we can't find it right now. The police is just saying you can't file anything because of the mental health history. Just take them for treatment somewhere. We are not going to file anything. That's what they keep on insisting.
So what did you go and tell the police?
Okay.
What was the statement that was made to the police? About what did you want to lodge a complaint?
So the client wants to do an FIR because DV can't go against the mother, only against the brother, right? So they plan to go ahead with an FIR stating that they have been physically violent with us and they've recently threatened to kill us.
So there will be no FIR. If there is a threat to kill, there is no FIR. It is a NC complaint.
They're still not going ahead with it too. The police just said that aap jao, unko samjhao, because they have a mental health history. We can't do anything.
So how
That's
did
all
the
they said.
police come to know about the mental health history?
Sorry?
How did the police come to know about the mental health history?
The client told them.
Very good. Tell her to disclose all the facts, no? Initially only. Now these
So-
are challenges, okay? So I will take it from here. So these are challenges. One is FIR cannot be filed just because you want to file the FIR. The FIR will be filed only if there is a provision in law to file the FIR. The second aspect is if there is a physical injury today and that amounts to assault, the police will file a complaint to that effect. But if an injury has happened 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 months ago, then the police today is not duty bound to lodge a FIR considering that assault which you did not report at that point in time.
The
If there
assault
is a-
happened a day back and they had evidence also of bruises and everything.
Okay, so with what was she assaulted?
Haath se, so pulling hair and
Yeah,
beating.
so that would be section 323, which would amount to a NC complaint.
NC complaint.
If she was beaten with something, then that would be section 324, which would become a FIR. Okay.
Okay.
So these are two aspects. Now the third aspect about the mental health. Okay. Now if the client has herself gone and disclosed, then अपने पैर पे कुल्हाड़ी मारा है ना?
Okay, so they have multiple NCs pehle ke bhi, because this assault is
She
it's
can
been
file a case of domestic violence, or she can make an application to file a case under section 498A, depending on cruelty that has happened for considerable period of time. Okay, so as social workers, as lawyers, we have to be very judicious in what information we are giving the other side. So if you yourself say कि वो पागल है, उनको depression है, then you yourself are reasoning or giving a reasoning or trying to justify the violence. If you go as a victim, you have to be concerned about what has happened to you and what has caused that injury, in what state it was done, what is the reason for doing it. That is for the police to investigate, not really for us to disclose or give aspects or intervention at the very beginning.
The previous NCs actually mentioned that they have psychological disorders, इसलिए they hit. So that was
yes.
also a concern.
Shreya, we can look into this matter after this.
No, so this happens with most women. They go ahead first only and they say a lot of things which possibly they do not have anything to prove also sometimes. And then that amounts to certain amount of, laxity on the part of the police in moving ahead with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Shreya. Thanks, Aileen. Dolphy, can we wrap up?
Yeah. So, couple of announcements for the. First of all, Advocate Eileen, we are so used to calling you Eileen. Advocate Eileen for being very interesting as usual. So much of clarity and thought, and also motivating and inspirational. Some of them, even Sanjay Das said it was very motivating and inspirational. Hearing your presentation in very simple terms, which all of us could understand. Friends, we have also, it's very important, we had earlier posted the DV Act both in English and Marathi to you. The importance is that acts need to also be read before we come for presentations like this, because it helps you to fine-tune your understanding of issues and also raise appropriate questions. Okay. The other thing we want to basically clearly mention to you is that in particular when you're dealing with issues or cases that come in, and if there are some things like people at the complainant is telling you about orders or court orders and all, it would always be helpful. हमेशा मदद होगी जब आप उनको वेरी क्लियरली अगर मदद चाहिए तो फैक्चुअल सिचुएशन और कोर्ट ऑर्डर्स आपके हाथ में रहने चाहिए, ताकि फिर उसके नेक्स्ट एक्शन क्या लेना है क्या नहीं लेना है वो हमें समझता है और हम प्रॉपर्ली उनको गाइड कर सकते हैं. तो ये बहुत ही महत्व की चीज है कि सुनने की बात अच्छे से सुनो जो फरियादी आता है आपके पास, और खास करके अगर कुछ कोर्ट ऑर्डर्स के बारे में बात करते हैं तो जो वो बोलते हैं उसके बदले उनको बोलो हमें कोर्ट ऑर्डर दिखाइए उसमें क्या ऑर्डर है, ताकि हम उनको बरोबर गाइड करें. कभी भी ऐसे इससे आते हैं तो मुझे बताइए या डोनिटा को बताइए, ताकि अपने नेटवर्क के थ्रू और जैसे एडवोकेट आइलीन है कुछ गाइडेंस हम ले सकते हैं किस तरह से जो पीड़ित औरत अपने पास आती है किस तरह से मदद कर सकते हैं. तो ये